So, hey guys, and welcome to the Lessons Learned podcast. And today I have Mark Stanton with me from Develop People. But before I get into introducing him and deep diving into his business, his career, and what bits of wisdom he'd like to share with everybody, don't forget to like, share, comment, and press the little bell button so you can see what other podcasts come in our future series. Mark, over to you. Would you like to introduce yourself to everybody?
Yeah, Justine, thanks. Thank you for having me on, first of all. Real pleasure to be able to come and have a chat with you. So, yeah, as you kindly said in the introduction, I'm Mark. I'm from the personal development people. I'm a leadership mentor and what I describe as a critical friend to business leaders. So
Nice.
I help business owners achieve their level of success in a way that holds them accountable. So
Which is the key.
Which is the key. Oh, absolutely. And so many people will say when they speak with us, you know, what I actually need is I need to be held accountable. They've got great ideas. They're brilliant entrepreneurs. They've got loads of motivation and desire. And then life gets in the way or something gets said to them that derails them. And then it stops them becoming accountable. So, but a little bit about the business. It was set up about 9 years ago by my wife, Emma. She is an expert. She will say she's not an expert because an X is something that was, and a spurt is a drip under pressure.
Okay.
So she's not either. But she's a specialist learning and development professional, vast experience in the private sector. She has been working with, major companies like Matalan, Sainsbury's. I'm not going to name drop everybody, but, she's got a vast experience. And she ran the business primarily as an additional sort of solopreneur business when I was in my other career. And then when I finished my career, we've sort of spent a couple of years adjusting, and then have decided to go into business together. So, yeah, do you know, it's we get asked that all the time, but I actually really enjoy it. I think she does as well. But what she said to me was that she interviewed me for 22 years. So she made sure first that I was suitable to be working with her and that I could be trusted to not ruin things for her.
Nice, I like it. So would you say, what is it that inspired you to get into, obviously you've seen your wife in it and you've kind of seen what she's had to kind of offer businesses and such, but what is it that inspired you to kind of get into this role from previous careers, or you can touch upon like what you've done in the past to get you to where you are now?
So where it originally came from for me was I left policing. I'd been in the police for 30 years. I finished as a senior officer in that organization. And I think when I left, what I said was, people would say, well, what do you do? And you go, I was just a police officer. But actually, when you broke it down, I was head of a department with nearly 600 people in it. The budget had got around £7 million in it. I had to coordinate, the HR, the operational logistics of what we were doing, set the strategy, decide the plans, put the meeting and governance in and everything like that. And when I came out of it, even though I came out of that, knowing all of that with all that experience, the bit that really fired me up was, how do you motivate people to do something that they would really struggle? No, they wouldn't struggle with it. It's how do you get them to do something that ultimately could put their life at risk? That was the thing that we were doing. And policing was all about that. It was about how do you make sure that police officers are doing the job that the public expect, that they are doing it in a way that's safe, etc. And I realized that for me, my sort of skills were all about people and how to lead them, how to inspire them, how to keep them motivated. And then I just thought, right, that's me. This is where I need to go. And I had the opportunity of coming in and working alongside Emma. So, yeah.
I think that's it's a really key and important thing, is to actually not look at a job based on the job title and the job industry that you're necessarily in, but to actually break it down into the tasks that you actually do. Because I think a lot of people get stuck in this is what my job's meant to be, it's the industry, but actually not looking at the specifics. So as you say, managing people, motivating people, getting the best out of them, but actually your job title wouldn't have necessarily suggested that to begin with. So it's kind of about breaking it down into those kind of key components and finding out which bits it is that you enjoy.
Yeah, most definitely. And it took me a while to find that it was the leadership side that was me. So I went, for example, I was head of business change for a while, and while I was doing that, I helped lead the program team that were doing all the that were putting the change program into place. So we were looking at reducing officer time at stuff. We were looking at reducing budget. We were changing the structure of the organization. So when I came out of policing, I chose to focus on that functional skill. So I went into a consultant business last year to go and do business change. But then what I realized was that wasn't the thing that I was actually good at. I could do it and I could control it and I could organize it. But the bit that was missing and the bit that I wanted to do was the people engagement, and to work alongside people who were running those programs and projects and then go, right, okay, you've got a problem with X, but actually the problem is caused because you two don't know how to communicate with each other, because neither of you have been taught how people behave, how they communicate. Levels of emotional intelligence are lower. So as a result of it, you're not seeing what the other person may be feeling or what they're experiencing. So that was where I thought, that's where my niche is. That's what I did and what I want to take forward.
I think that's probably, again, it's another big, and going back to the podcast title, lessons learned really is, and I think I've learned it myself, is you can't be a master of everything. There are certain elements that you enjoy and there's certain elements that you're good at, but just because you're good at them doesn't mean that you necessarily enjoy them. And I think the biggest thing that I've personally learned is that I love the job that I do, but there's certain elements that just take so much effort for me to do, although I know I'm good at that. I've now got, I delegate them to staff to do it. And so, but being and having an awareness of that and an understanding of that, I find is really important, and something not a lot of people want to do because they don't want to pass those tasks over. But as you say, you found that bit that you really liked, and you noticed those spots that people were missing, and that's what you help people to develop, to understand, to communicate, and to kind of acknowledge them. So
absolutely. And that came as well, Justine, I would say, on the back of sort of like my leadership journey, because as I was going through, when I first became a leader, one of the things that I wanted to be able to prove, oh, this is all on me. I've got to do all of this. So I didn't delegate very well. I know, and you keep all of this stuff to yourself, and even those things that you hate doing. And then as you develop in your leadership, what you realize is hang on a minute, loads of other people have got loads to contribute. And actually, I become a better leader if I just let them do what they need to do. And all I need to do is facilitate what they want to do and unlock things that they can't do because they don't have the authority or the skill set or the experience to do. So, and then when you realize and you go, right, okay, now if I look at myself, I've got loads of gaps. Who can fill the gaps that I haven't got? And have the humility to be able to say, do you know what? I don't know.
Yeah.
What do you think?
I think that's the important thing, is that having that humility to say, what do you think in it, or what are my weaknesses and how can you help or fill those gaps?
And I don't know if you've experienced this, but for me, I think a lot of leaders we all have fears, and we all have things that a lot of us will fear being judged by other people, for example, or we may have a fear of getting something wrong, and that will have come back from right from being young. But we also have this sort of like, because of that, we experience this, well, I don't want to show that I'm vulnerable, because if I'm vulnerable, I show that I'm weak. And if I'm weak, therefore I'm incompetent. Well, I don't want to come across as incompetent and not good enough. And you go, right, hang on a minute, just press pause on that. And then go, right, which looks weakest? The person that struggles all the way through it and makes a complete hash of it because they don't want to sit there and go, can you help me? I
Yeah.
don't know this. I know these bits, but I don't know the others. So can you help me? And when people ask, they suddenly realize that there are groups of people all around them that just want to be able to help them get on the same as they would do the other way around.
Yeah, and there's that great British thing, isn't it, where everyone's afraid of asking questions or to ask for help, but British people love to answer questions. So there's that really funny kind of you don't want to ask, but you need the help, but people want to answer and help as well. So it's just kind of getting over that. And another great thing is, I think, in marketing a business, you have to show vulnerabilities and be accountable for things, and almost put your story on the line. A lot of the time people buy from people, but people don't see being vulnerable as a person as a benefit, whereas business, you can kind of acknowledge now that people will buy from you if you're a bit more vulnerable and a bit more open about your life and your story. So hopefully there's going to be that shift in people as well, and I guess that's what you're here to help do as well. I know we've touched on loads of like life lessons and stuff in business, but have you got any key lessons that you've learned now that you wish you knew before you started doing any career that you've been doing?
Yeah, so the first one would be is, like we've just touched on there, don't be afraid to ask.
Yeah.
Don't be afraid to show that you are vulnerable and that you don't know all the answers. Have some humility. And then the other really big one for me is, I was always authentic. I was never anybody else other than myself. But what I never realized was that the power of being you is really key to attracting the people that you need and want to be around, both in business and in your personal life. So for the people who don't get me and don't like me, then that's okay. I can't be liked by everybody, and I'm not everybody's cup of tea. But for those people, it's what?
That's okay.
And that's absolutely okay. But then when you realize that if I'm just me, I will attract other people who will say, I'll get benefit from you being you, so please don't change.
Yeah.
You've just got to go out and find them. So that big lesson for me is around authenticity. It is, be who you are and don't be afraid to be who you are. And if you don't know who you are, do the internal work that needs doing so that you understand more. What are my values? What are the things that are really important to me in life? What are the things that I want to be able to achieve? What are my goals? Where am I going? What support might I need to get there? Those types of things. What's holding me back from being the person that I want to be, or the business person that I want to be? You've got to do the internal work. You can't just, I discovered that the hard way, you can't just read a load of books on self-development and then never put anything into practice that they give you.
Yeah.
And then you've got to find the ones that work for you. So for me, it is, ask, show authenticity, never be afraid to keep learning, always learn.
Love that. Love that. I'm a great believer in kind of self-development at any stage. I don't care what degrees or anything you've got. There's no better life lesson than kind of getting stuck in and just trying to learn from experiences that you go through all the time. So love that. Are there any kind of experiences that you've been through in your career that you'd like to kind of share that people might be going through at the moment, that they could maybe take little snippets of golden nuggets of information that they might be able to implement into their kind of journey today?
Crikey, where'd you start?
One. One of many.
Oh my goodness. I mean, so I put out a post this week, which will be a bit difficult if it's on a podcast now, wouldn't it? Say this week, it could be any week. But I put a post out about sort of like the experience that shaped my leadership journey. And I think that everybody will go through a moment that if they look up and listen and always reflect on the experiences, the ones that have worked really well for them and the ones that haven't, they will find the learning that says that particular incident shaped who I am today. because they'll look back on it in years to come. And mine was very early on in policing. I was on a van. We patrolled as a group of 8 officers all the time, and we got called to another police officer that said that they needed assistance as they were getting assaulted. And we turn up at Birmingham Cathedral, and we grab hold of this fella that is having a bit of an up and a downer with this other police officer, put him in the back of the van. And I sat there looking at him, and it was only when I really sat there and looked at him that we got him on, and we were calming things down. And I looked at him and I said, what on earth did you do that for? Why did you do it? And he just looked at me. And it was when he looked at me that I just thought, you know what? I didn't just see the person that I'd locked up, if you like. When he sat there, he was really haggard and thin. His eyes were sunk. It was like, the way that I would describe it, it was that the life had drained from him, and he looked absolutely beaten. And it was like, that's, this is it. I'm done in. There's nothing else. And he just sat there and he looked at me and he went, I just want a cup of tea.
Oh.
And I sat there, and those words have stuck with me for like the best part of 20 odd years, because when I looked at him, I thought, whatever has happened that's got him there, he's sat on the street begging. He's got into a dispute with a police officer, and he won't have set out that day to go, do you know what, today I'm going to go and get myself arrested for begging. Yeah. What he's got is, I'm at a point in my life where I feel I've got no other choices other than to go and sit and beg.
Yeah.
And when you look at that, you go, right, okay, my choice was, we drove him back to the custody suite, and the sergeant said to me, he said, what is it you want to do with him? And when they say, what do you want to do with him, is, do you want to refuse to charge him? Do you want to, charge him with anything? Do you want to do him for the assault, public order? And I just looked at him, and at the sergeant, I said, you know what, Sergeant? I said, I just want to get him that cup of tea, and I want to get him a meal. And we got him a cup of tea, a meal, and we took him to a homeless shelter for the night. And that for me was the moment where I suddenly went, do you know what? I've got a choice here. I could keep going around making arrests and locking people up and putting them into a system and, say, well, I act within the law. That's what the law says. Over you go. Or I can have a bit of humility and I can do something about people. And when I saw that guy, he made me realize that there's a story that sits behind people. And whether you're dealing with people outside of your business, whether you're dealing with a client, whether you're dealing with a member of the team, whether it's another director that you're dealing with, everybody has a backstory. Yeah. And on that day, in that moment in time where you have an exchange with them, you are only experiencing that moment, that snapshot of their entire life. You know nothing about what has happened to that point in time. So if you judge them purely on that moment in time, you're missing loads. Yeah. So that gave to me the ability within leading people and within the business that I was in to say, stop judging people. Look at all the circumstances, open your eyes, lift your head up and see what else is going on and what's happened that's brought them to that point. And it helped me in things like, if I had discipline issues for staff, I never just looked at the discipline issue and would say, oh, well, you've done this and that's against regulations and you shouldn't have done. It was, right, okay, we've got to hear what's happened before. How have we got to where we are today? And usually what you find is somebody will make a bad decision. To rectify the bad decision, they make another decision. But because they've made a bad decision first, the second decision actually is only compounding it. Yeah. And then they get confused and get lost and go, I've got nowhere to go. Yeah. And then they end up in a mess. So that's probably a long answer to that question. But
to be fair, it's touched on a couple of things, because my next question was going to be a bit of, what advice would you give to someone who was struggling or in a bit of a setback in business or whatever? But that's a great kind of example of how you would utilize an experience like what you've been through and kind of use those understandings to kind of be able to manage things in business. So understanding that there's other things going on in people's lives, and that one thing has led to another thing, that then led to another thing, and they always tend to spiral out of control. So really great bit of advice that people can kind of implement and utilize moving forward. I think one of my key things from something like that is I always thought that I could do everything on my own, that I never spoke to people about it, and didn't realize how much I was becoming so tunnel visioned with everything, that I probably was that person who just wanted to sit down and have a brew with someone and talk it all out. But I felt like I couldn't, because I felt like I had all the answers. So again, I think that comes with as you get older and your experience and stuff like that. But that touches on that as well, in regards to understand what other people have got going on, not only in their business life, but in their personal life too, because it all has an impact on every aspect of life, doesn't it? And decisions especially.
The thing, and where you say about decisions there, you know, in business, we're all going to have difficult decisions to make. They're going to be things that we really don't want to do. But at the end of the day, you can still do them with compassion. You can still take in a number of factors and explain to people, this is why I'm doing what I'm doing. This is why I've chosen this route. You may not like it. You may not agree with me. It may be the wrong decision, but it's my decision based on everything I know at the moment.
Transparency.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
I suppose it leaves no misjudgment or anything in that if you're transparent from the beginning as to why, what, when, what's happened to get you to that point. It leaves all the stones unturned, doesn't it?
Yeah, it definitely does. And you know, what other lessons would I give people? It would be showing compassion, being, like I said, about, you know, be authentic. If you're stuck, the other thing to know is that if you're stuck, it's not going to last forever.
Yeah, I love that.
These things, you know, just as the good times, you know, don't last forever, nor do the bad times, and you will get through it. And you'll get through it more if you're prepared to be open and to ask. If you're prepared to step into being uncomfortable for a short period of time, then you can go, right, okay, somebody has given me a potential solution that I can try and that will help me in my business.
Yeah.
You know, but you've got to be prepared to ask.
Yeah, great bit of advice. I mean, you've filled the whole podcast with loads of advice, lessons that people can take away, more than I could have asked for. So that's great. We've even touched upon, obviously, this is the business edition. We've got the life edition too, and that's more about things that you've learned in your personal life and how you implement them, what you've learned in the past that kind of changes your decision making today. So I'd love to get you on that podcast as well, because I think we'll have loads to talk about. It's been a pleasure, so thank you very much. Could you just tell everyone how they can find you, reach you, contact you, find out about the business, and then we can finish up?
Cool, thank you. So you can find us, our website is develop-people.co.uk, but you can also find me on LinkedIn, which is primarily where I do my social media and all my posting and things like that. So I'm just Mark Stanton, and my picture has got me with my beard with a blue shirt on and a white background. You can't miss me.
Brand new headshot, I believe, as well. So
it is a brand new headshot. Do you know what? He actually markets himself as probably the best headshot photographer in Cheshire, and I'm telling you, he's not wrong.
Okay, nice. They look great, so well done to him.
Thank you.
I will put all the links to your profiles and such in the bio. And just a reminder to everyone, if you enjoyed what you heard on the podcast today, want to connect with Mark, don't forget to like, share and follow. And if you want to jump on the podcast, I'll put a link below. Give me a message and we'll try and get you on. So thank you for joining.
No, perfect. Thank you.
Thank you.